There is a door you've never tried to open. Not because it's locked, and not because someone stopped you, but because, somewhere along the way, you decided it wasn't for you. In the 1800s, doctors discovered something unsettling. You don't need chains to keep people inside. You don't even need guards. You just need to convince them the door isn't theirs. Tonight, we're talking about the moment institutions learned how to imprison the mind, and why we're still standing in front of those doors today. Imagine standing in a long hallway, stone floor, high windows. It's clean, orderly, almost peaceful. There are no chains on the walls, no screaming, no iron bars, just doors. This was considered progress. In 1796, in northern England, a place called the York Retreat opened its doors. It was founded by Quakers, and historians still praise it as a revolution in mental health care. No beatings, no shackles, no public humiliation. They called it moral treatment. Patients were encouraged to behave normally. They were spoken to politely. They were given routines. They were told the rules. And one of those rules was simple. You are not leaving. The doors were locked, but that wasn't the innovation. The innovation was that no one needed to stand guard, because by the time patients arrived at the door, most of them never even tried the handle. Let's pause there, because this is where the horror actually lives. Not in cruelty, not in violence, but in belief. At the York Retreat, patients were told their illness made them unfit for the outside world, that their families had entrusted the institution to make them better, that leaving too soon would be dangerous. They were told this calmly, repeatedly, and kindly. And after weeks or months of hearing it, something happened. They stopped imagining escape. Doctors praised this as a success. One report noted how patients willingly complied with confinement. Another celebrated the absence of resistance. No resistance means no force. No force means no visible harm. No visible harm means no scandal. This was humane. But the idea didn't stay in York. It spread across Europe, across America. By the mid-1800s, massive institutions like the Salpêtrière in Paris and Bicêtre Hospital adopted similar principles. Philippe Pinel famously removed chains from patients there in 1793. Paintings celebrate him like a saint. What they don't show is what replaced the chains: internalized obedience. Patients were conditioned to believe the door was not for them, that the outside world would reject them, and that their own judgment was unreliable. So when they stood in front of an unlocked door, they hesitated, and then they turned back. Here's the unsettling part. Doctors noticed this. They wrote about it. They realized that once a person accepted the label of patient, the building didn't need walls. The rules lived inside the person now. This is one of the earliest documented forms of psychological containment. You don't restrain the body. You reshape the mind. And once you know it works, you never stop using it. Before we keep going, pause for a second. If you're still here, it means this story already has you. And history like this doesn't like being forgotten. So if you want more quiet horrors, the kind that hide in paperwork and polite language, subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications. Because these stories don't repeat themselves loudly. They repeat when no one is paying attention. And I want to ask you something. Think about the doors in your life. The ones that aren't locked, the ones you've never tried to open. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's a rule, a system, or a sign on the door you've followed without ever questioning? Then we'll continue. Because the most unsettling part of this story is that it didn't end in the 1800s. Now let's bring this closer, because you already know this feeling. Think about a door with a sign on it. Authorized personnel only. Employees only. Do not enter. There is no lock. You don't try the handle. Not because you physically can't, but because something in you says, this space is not meant for me. No guard, no threat, just compliance. Now imagine that sign being repeated to you every day for months. You're not ready. You can't handle it. This is for your own good. At some point, the sign becomes unnecessary. Back in the asylums, this logic was refined. Patients were given small freedoms to prove their obedience. A walk, a book, a chair by the window. These privileges could be removed instantly, so people learned to self-correct. A doctor at a Massachusetts asylum wrote in 1845 that the most successful patients were those who policed themselves. Read that again. Not healed, not cured, successful. And once an institution learns this trick, it scales. Workhouses used it. Orphanages used it. Residential schools used it. Children learned not to ask to go home. Inmates learned not to question their meals. Patients learned not to touch doors, because touching the door meant you hadn't learned your place yet. Here's the part history textbooks rarely linger on. Some patients were released, but many didn't leave. Not because they couldn't, but because they didn't know how anymore. Records from asylums show former patients asking permission to step outside even after being discharged. Some returned voluntarily, saying the world felt too loud, too fast, too dangerous. This wasn't madness. This was conditioning. The door had done its work. Now let's talk about today, because we like to believe we outgrew this. But look around. We train ourselves not to question algorithms, not to read the terms and conditions, not to appeal automated decisions. A message appears on a screen. Access denied. Account restricted. Violation detected. No explanation. Most people don't appeal. They assume the system knows best. The door doesn't need a lock anymore. It just needs authority. Think about workplaces where no one asks about salaries. Online spaces where people self-censor before posting. Bureaucracies where the form tells you you're ineligible and you never ask why. This is moral treatment with better branding. No chains, no guards, just rules that feel natural. Back in the 1800s, asylum reformers genuinely believed they were doing good. That's what makes this frightening. They didn't see themselves as villains. They saw themselves as efficient. And that's the quiet lesson history keeps trying to teach us. The most effective control doesn't look like violence. It looks like cooperation. It looks like calm hallways, clean institutions, and unlocked doors no one touches. So when you stand in front of a door and feel that hesitation, ask yourself something unsettling. Who taught me this door wasn't for me? And more importantly, what happens when I try the handle anyway? Thanks for watching.